pledges.
My name is Nora Mulligan, and I am your worship associate this morning. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 221, Light One Candle in your gray hymnal. Changing hats right now. I'm still Nora Mulligan, and I am the Vice President of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you've been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homelands of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. We have one announcement. On Christmas Eve, this Tuesday at 5 o'clock, we will have our traditional Christmas Eve vigil, followed by a potluck reception. We hope that you will join us and bring something light to eat or drink at the reception. Please see Ginny Stillman to let her know what you can bring. For the most up-to-date information on these topics and others, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website frequently. And please join us for conversation after the service. If you're present in the sanctuary, please join us for coffee and conversation in the Fellowship Hall. If you're watching the live stream, the link for our Zoom coffee hour can be found in the Saturday reminder in your email. If you are just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-news, please email us at uukroton@gmail.com with your name, and we will make sure you're added to our e-news list. Also, please remember to silence your cell phones at this time. Once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
Good morning. I'm very happy today to welcome our guest pianist, Richard Devins. Thank you for being a good time together, especially this time of year. We are gathering on a very special day, on a very special week, one that is holy to multiple traditions. This week, Christmas, Hanukkah, the solstice just passed, the Persian celebration of Yalda, all take place on this same planet. Every one of us, in different ways, are connected to different stories, and this time of year is rich with them. However you found your way to this chapel, to this sanctuary, today we are together. We are sharing a moment, and from that, we can, in the words of Rabbi Sharon Brous, reclaim religion. Use it not just as a way to divide, to cultivate hatred, to retell ancient embitterment, but instead to be attentive to our choices. Together, she says, we will do what we need to be safe and protect one another, and also to be brave, to imagine new stories. So we come together the morning after solstice, the longest night, the sacred darkness, and on the cusp of the celebration of the festival of dedication, Hanukkah, and soon the celebration of Christmas. However we found ourselves here, we are. And may we be attentive and present to all that is around us. In that spirit of unfolding and connection, in our congregation, we have a tradition of ringing the bells of our sanctuary. Across traditions, people will hear those bells and wonder, where is that congregation? And we will say, we are across from Lupacello's in a beautiful repainted building with lavender doors. Come, join us. And in that spirit, I invite all the children in the sanctuary to head to the bell tower, and our RE instructor today, could you join them? Yes, thank you. In the bell tower as we ring the bells for our shared values of love, hope, and possibility. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of why we're here and why we gather.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are from Jamie Yandel. We are not just flesh and bone. We have stardust in our veins, a reminder that we carry within us the planets that align in our hearts. May we show up for one another, show up for ourselves in the process, and remember that we are divinity incarnate. May we learn to lean into that pure and true source in each other more willingly, and with love that will not abandon us and will sustain us for the many hard days that have passed and those yet to come. Now, please join me in saying our unison affirmation. The words are written in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice. And now, please join us in our songs of praise, which we have been doing for the last month or so. The words are in the order of service. We will first sing the English version, and then we will sing the Spanish version.
In the spirit of this holiday season, unfolding holiday season, 5 of the Unitarian Universalist clergy in Rockland and Westchester County got together and discussed what types of messages should we offer this year on the brink of the year to come. And through discernment and reflection, we authored and now offer a joint letter, which we submitted to the River Journal and the North Westchester Examiner, the Lower Hudson Valley newspaper. It has been published so far in 2 of the 3. And it was signed by Reverend Arlen Roy, Reverend Emily DeTar-Burt, myself, Reverend Daniel Lawlor, Reverend Danielle Lindstrom in White Plains, Reverend Lane Cobb, serving Mohegan Lake, and Reverend Mark Cutolo, serving Rockland County. And we said, as individual clergy united, this sacred season is anchored by ancient stories of poor families seeking shelter from harm, welcoming the stranger, defending the orphan, resisting cruel kings, lighting candles of dedication, and feeding the hungry. As clergy in the Unitarian and Universalist religious traditions, we are humbled and challenged by these ancient stories of refuge. Our own religious heritage includes ancestors forced to flee their homes because of violence and persecution. Inspired by that heritage, we urge the U.S. Congress to pass legislation providing permanent residency and citizenship for Dreamers and other recipients of deferred action for childhood arrivals. Dreamers are neighbors, friends, and families who are part of our local and national fabric. Their loss would harm us all. Too many families live with painful uncertainty because of immigration status and deserve a secure future. We also urge our friends and neighbors to be attentive to our everyday practice. Let's all support those seeking refuge in our communities and starting new lives in New York, of all places. Let's stop the fear and suspicion we may encounter in social media or town squares. Our faith tradition and so many others here in New York have repeatedly called for a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers and other DACA recipients as a moral imperative. In our spiritual and shared civic lives, this sacred season offers us all a chance to rededicate ourselves to welcoming the stranger, feeding the hungry, and building a more loving world for all of the children in it. Signed, the clergy of the Unitarian Universalist tradition in Westchester. We've also are submitting this to our local Congress officials and hope that it's just one more voice asking for a just 2025. And in that spirit of hope, please stand. You don't have to shake hands. You can nod and greet your neighbors. May it be so. As a people of many traditions, all in one room, we unite with our common breath and common pause. So let's take a moment to breathe in and breathe out in a 5-part exercise, returning to my body in the present moment. And then after that, we'll have about 2 minutes of silent meditation and recollection. After that period of silence, you will hear the hymn, Dark of Winter, begin to play. Listen to the tune once, and then after we go through that first time, then we'll all sing together. Many people begin to practice sitting meditation, according to the teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, with the help of this exercise. Even those who have meditated for many years continue to practice it. Breathing in allows us to bring complete attention to the in-breath. Whatever the breath may be in the body, feel the calm it brings. Just like cool water on a hot day or hot water on a cold day, feel how the breath cools the organs of the body. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Breathing in, I am aware of the whole length of my in-breath. Breathing out, I am aware of the whole length of my out-breath. Breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I relax my whole body. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I dwell in the present moment. Breathing out, it is a wonderful moment. And now, as a community, we sing to to the young people of this congregation, our children, as they head to our religious exploration class this morning. And may the wonders of this unfolding holiday season bring unexpected joy and possibility to all of them. May it be so. On our Sunday gatherings, we hear from a voice of the committee, someone who is a leader in our congregation. We've heard this past fall different news of the auction and different opportunities. And this morning, we will hear from our inclusion team here at the congregation.
Inclusion or inclusivity?
Inclusivity. Thank you.
See, I get directed at home, so I got it. Good morning, everyone. I just want to say a brief word about becoming an official welcoming congregation. We're not going to try and become one because we already are a welcoming congregation, but not in the eyes of the UUA. To rectify that, the inclusivity team has focused our efforts on becoming a truly welcoming fellowship for people of all sexual orientation and gender identities. Shortly after the UUA Welcoming Congregation program began in 1989, the UUCHV membership took the necessary steps to earn the designation. But like many congregations across the country, we never applied to renew it. In 2015, to encourage congregations to better understand the commitment to this work, and to keep pace with the most current needs and concerns of the LGBTQ community, the UUA began a formal renewal program. There are 3 requirements for renewal, including measurable achievements in the area of education, congregational life, and community outreach. While there's no one right way to becoming a welcoming congregation, the UUA does provide guidelines to achieve these goals. Most, if not all, our community already engages in. This is much more than just a symbolic designation. In the most practical terms, UUCHV doesn't appear on any internet search of UU welcoming congregations. So visitors who search for LGBTQ plus friendly houses of worship will not find us. The first step to renewing our welcoming status is holding a congregational vote, which we're going to do at our mid-year meeting, date to be determined. Assuming the vote passes, we then submit our formal application. The UUA reviews the application, and then they schedule an interview with their welcoming congregation committee. And then hopefully we get our designation. I hope you'll all vote to officially affirm what we already know, that here, whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Thank you.
As Unitarian Universalists, we find wisdom from many sources, ancient and modern. Our reading today is from the Reverend Anna Levy-Lyons, past minister at All Souls, New York City, and First Unitarian, Brooklyn. Reverend Levy-Lyons has begun studies to become a rabbi. Selection from the 1000th Generation. Nothing stays contained to one moment, or even one lifetime. We can't possibly know the effects of our actions or exactly how they will reverberate through time and space. But what we can do is ask ourselves, what kind of seed do we have in our hand? What is the nature of the thing we are planting and putting out into the world? What are we participating in? What about the words we're about to speak? What about the words we're about to withhold? What about the quality of attention we pay to someone who needs to express themselves? Are we really listening? How do we use our power? How do we behave with those who have no power, children or non-human animals? How do we behave with those who can't hold us accountable? Strangers on the subway, strangers online. What are we passing on to the next generation? We come together in community to share with one another, to support one another, and to celebrate with one another. We bear sacred witness to each other in this honored ritual. As we begin, we know that there are both great sorrows and great joys in our world that must be acknowledged as well. We light our first candle to honor those in pain, victims of violence and war and oppression all around the world. We light a second candle because we understand that amidst all of that pain, there is also celebration and joy in our world. We honor that joy and sorrow are woven together. For some of us here today, this has been a week of life-changing joy that needs to be lifted up in this worship. For others, this has been a time of deep pain and sorrow that needs to be shared to make the burden lighter. If this has been such a time for you, I invite you to come forward, light a candle, and to briefly tell us your joy or sorrow. You may also raise your hand in silent acknowledgement of your joys and sorrows, and we will light a candle for you.
Hi, I'm Margie, and it was a joy this morning to see Betsy Cates, who works at Books for Humanity in Ossining. They had a gift wrapping event this weekend, and Dee Dee, our favorite local drag queen, gave Betsy an envelope of cash to donate to Fourth Fridays, which was the proceeds from that event. So the community support is very touching and a joy.
I'm Tara Greenway Leibowitz. I have a couple of joys, and one is that 2 weeks ago, so I'm not contagious and I'm fully immune, I had COVID, and it was really bad. I guess it's never really good, but it was really bad this time. And I, at one point, went on Facebook and just said, send me any prayers and healing that you have, because I have religious friends, and I have ex-religious friends, and I have a lot of healer friends, and people really came through, and just I felt so held and loved, and people gave me healing sessions, and I got better. So that was a sorrow and a joy, and another sorrow and joy is that it's been very, very difficult lately between our 23-year-old daughter and me, and I was not sure that she would come home for Christmas. And because I'm a wily kind of mom, I invited my mom to come for Christmas because my daughter may be able to resist me, but no one can resist Grammy. And it worked. And my daughter's coming home from today, which is my mom's 89th birthday. And she's fabulous, and she'll be here, but I read the thing that said, you know, COVID is going around, and I was like, so she's at home. She might come Tuesday night. But my older daughter will come today for Grammy's birthday all the way through Christmas. So that's 4 days, and that's pretty good. And I hope that we'll be able, she and I, to just, you know, not like, I plan to not talk seriously at all. Just like celebrate and hang out and sort of reestablish the loving connection. And we have a 15-year-old too, and she's a lot of fun, and I'm very grateful for our family being together this Christmas, and then we'll also go and after Christmas, we'll spend New Year's with my brother and sister-in-law that I have spoken of here sometimes, and my sister-in-law is doing pretty well, and that will be a joy as well to be with them. So, thank you.
Good morning, Betsy. Thank you, Tara, for lighting that. It's reminding me to light a candle of concern, not concern, but just acknowledgement that my son will be all alone on Christmas in Hanoi. And he made the choice. He's cool with it, but he has asked me on the FaceTime call to not say or do anything sentimental. So, working on this.
Hi, everybody. I'm April, and I have a joy that I want to share. My mother came to visit for a week, and why it's such a joy is when I was growing up, my mother had a pretty serious substance abuse problem, and she was a single mom. So there was a lot of abuse and violence in my home growing up. And for years, I avoided her, or else we would have pretty explosive confrontations. But I have been on a path of recovery for close to a decade, and that's really allowed me to be with her in a different way. And so that's a joy in and of itself, but the spiritual awakening that I experienced while she was there was, so I started a new job about 2 months ago, and it's been a blessing and a lot. It's been just a lot of travel, a lot of everything. So this is my brand new job. It's in this fancy building at Hudson Yards, and from my childhood, I always had this fear that one of my addicted parents would show up in Manhattan, and embarrass me and do the whole thing, And but I had this feeling of I want to take my mom to my job, and so I invited her. And then the morning I was about to leave, I said to my husband, I'm really scared about this, what if she reverts back to the person she was when I was a kid? And he looked at me and he's like, yeah, maybe I'll go horns today. He's like, that's not who she is anymore, And I really appreciated that he was able to mirror reality to me. He's not in a recovery program. It was just reality and reasonable thinking. And I was like, thank you so much for saying that. And so I took her. We navigated going from the Grand Central, getting on the 7 to Hudson Yards. Have you ever done that? It's not the most smooth subway experience. We managed that. I took her up there. She was great. People were kind to her. She did not embarrass me. And it was really important for me and to be able to say to her, this is who I am. Maybe one day that'll happen here. I don't know. We'll work on that, but slowly over time. But it was a real joy to be able to be myself and to trust in growth and love. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom. If you'll indulge me, I've got a triple joy, if I can share. The first is 2 weeks ago, a member of one of my colleagues at school had a horrible fall and should have died. And 2 weeks later, he's being moved to rehab with what appears to be no long-term it's going to be a long haul, but he's like, he can move. He's got all 4 limbs moving. It is truly a miracle. Going to visit him hopefully on Monday, but really just a miracle. The second joy, I was putting Felix to bed a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Daddy, I've got the best experiment." And I said, "Oh yeah?" He's like, "Well, I'm going to find out if Santa's real or if it's you and Mommy." And explained to me that Scarlett on the bus had written to Santa and gotten a note back, and he was going to write his own. If the handwriting matched, then clearly he's real. And with the amazingness of PTA phone directories, we were able to make sure everything worked out. But now he's connected with the elf living in his bathroom, and it's just the most wonderful thing. And so he's written thank you notes, and he's going to leave a gift and so on. So that's just lovely. And then last weekend we weren't here because we were at Tuba Christmas, where Emily and Lindy were playing under the tree at Rockefeller Center, and it was just so neat. This was her second, and it was really lovely. You might think that 400 or so tuba players all in one place is too many, and it is, but it was really great and so festive. So anyway.
We light one final candle for all those joys and sorrows that remain unexpressed, and for those outside of our walls who are searching for a place to bring the wholeness of their lives and be received with love.
Would you join me for a moment of prayer, pause, meditation? Spirit of darkness and dedication that surrounds us on the longest night and on the nights of candles, be with us as we encounter one another. The temptations to distraction are many. The temptations to be cold are vast, but let us be present and be in awe and be warm with one another, especially those we might not expect to be. May it be so. Darkness and dedication. I think it is a profound gift that just before the holidays of this week begin, we celebrated the solstice last night, the longest night of the year. And soon we will celebrate a festival, often wrongly called the Festival of Lights, but truly the Festival of Dedication. And today we think about what darkness, I invite us to think about what darkness and dedication might mean in our lives. And darkness is something that often in American culture we're taught to push away. It's like, no, turn on the lights. Turn on the lights. But darkness is sacred. And if you look back, even in the ancient Psalms, King David talked about night is as bright as the sky, and darkness is as light to you, O Eternal. Even the darkness is not dark. Both are holy. Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper, who's a colleague in the UU ministry, has written about our need as religious people to honor both, quote, the swan and the panther, to see the beauty and power of religious metaphors that honor the dark, don't fear it, and that is something that we can cultivate in our personal and communal religious life. In a gorgeous poem, she talks about, quote, "In the beginning there was darkness, a blackness that covered all, comprising the building blocks of creation, the nutrients and nurturing needed to birth the world. This dark womb pushed out the light that released the heavens and cradled the plants and stars adorning the universe. This same darkness shelters us from an unrelenting sun, calls animals to safe hibernation, and protects the germination of seed and bulb." And she offers this teaching to us in our personal lives and communal lives because there's such a temptation to resist the darkness. Even if you look at some of the postings about solstice, people talk about the stars and the candles, and it's like everything possible to avoid that the solstice is the longest night of the year. It's a time of unfolding depth. And she suggests part of that is the insidious, conscious, and unconscious American white supremacist habits of denigrating and bullying dark. But also, she says it's a fear, religious fear, of that which is bigger and unknown. And she says, imagine how we might be different if we didn't fear darkness. Imagine if in our culture, darkness signified, like she said, shelter, hibernation, germination. How would our imaginations be altered by the intentional cultivation of appreciation of the darkness divine? The dark night, the solstice, reminds us that we're actually connected, that we are dependent on older, vaster, bigger, and mysterious forces, vibrations larger and smaller than ourselves. And as we are completing that long night, we come into a series of days of dedication. Days of dedication. Rabbi Sharon Brous, who's a dynamic rabbi in Los Angeles, she recently actually was the first Jewish chaplain at Chappaqua. She wrote, "Showing up for one another doesn't require grand heroic gestures. It means training ourselves to approach even when our instinct tells us to withdraw. It means picking up the phone and calling our friend or colleague who is suffering. It means going to the funeral and the house of mourning. It also means going to the wedding and to the birthday dinner. Reach out," she writes, "in your strength and step forward in your vulnerability. Err on the side of presence." And when I read Rabbi Brous's words, it actually brought to my mind a poem I had read by a Palestinian-American poet, Naomi Shabib Nye, who said, "Before you know kindness as the deepest thing, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. In order to be present, we have to be present for all of it. Everything that's beautiful, everything that's hard." Dr. Dan Sinkin, who is a scholar of the apocalypse, a scholar of the apocalypse, wrote a moving essay in 2016 where he reflected on the ride home from a family Hanukkah celebration in Minnesota. In his words, just shy of the winter solstice. He said, "In its briefest form, the story of Hanukkah is this. A divided nation faces an unhinged king. What next?" With more details, when recounting the first book of Maccabees, Professor Sinkin summarized the 2,200-year-old story this way. Hanukkah is a story about a people divided. It was 167 years before the Common Era, and the Jewish people had, for centuries, heard tales from their prophets about self-determination. But instead, the Seleucid Empire, which was an offshoot of Alexander the Great's conquest, came to occupy Judea, and 33 years later, in a particularly vicious moment, King Antiochus IV pressured Jews across the kingdom to assimilate to Greek culture. Many did, especially urban elites. And these Hellenized Jews assumed power in Jerusalem and made the practice of traditional Judaism punishable by death, rededicated the temple to Zeus, and to the horror of many traditionalists, desecrated the temple with the slaughter of a pig in the holiest of holies. And when you read the ancient Maccabees book, you are given this image of rising intolerance, extremist forces seizing power and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing a people. And ultimately it culminates with this military revolt from the rural parts of Judea, led by the Maccabees. And they are equally violent in their assault on this occupying regime. And it is bloody and it is divisive. And after this essentially civil war aggravated by the powers of the fallen Alexander the Great Empire, after so many families have been divided, after so many people's trust is broken, finally, after too many people were needlessly killed, the war ends. And some of the Maccabees go into what remains of the temple that had been dedicated to Zeus, and then they light a candle of rededication. And supposedly, the story goes, there was only enough oil really to keep this candle of rededication open and lit for one day, but it lasted for 8. And that's the miracle. The miracle of Hanukkah is a miracle of rededication. But one thing that, as I've read more commentators, is completely clear, the rabbis and the religious commentators in the centuries to come, they did not say the miracle was this violent military victory. That's not what the miracle was. The miracle was not the Maccabean dynasty that was formed after. The miracle was that the rededication lasted multiple days and there was a chance to start over. Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove, who serves a congregation in the city, said, "The sages asked the obvious question. If there was enough oil for one night, well, then that first night technically wasn't a miracle. Why 8 days? Shouldn't Hanukkah be a 7-night festival?" Yet Cosgrove comes from a school of thought that suggests that in the face of that horrible war, a needless, fratricidal, too long fought war with extremists on both sides, one that divided families and destroyed too many lives, Rabbi Cosgrove says instead, following the sages, to light the candle at all, that was the miracle of the first night. A miracle greater than all the other days combined. Dedication when there's no reason. Hope that what comes next does not have to be what just occurred. Strangely, disorientingly, of all things, the book of Maccabees later on actually has praise for the Roman Republic. And I didn't believe that. I was like, that commentary can't be wrong. But it does. It does. And you can read more in Michael Walzer's 2012 book, In God's Shadow, Politics in the Hebrew Bible. But in chapter 8, verse 15, Maccabees says, "Not one in the Roman Republic has put a crown or worn purple as a mark of pride. They have built for themselves a Senate chamber, and every day 320 senators deliberate concerning the people to govern them well." And I bring this up because it just emphasizes that even the original authors of Maccabees were not lifting up that dynasty as the perfect example of all government for all time. They were saying what is noble is that after this horrific conflict, people wanted to recommit to the founding principles to say we could go in a different direction and we don't have to do this again. And one of the things that's profound to me is, as we know, barely 200 years after this war, after this ancient praise of the Republic no longer existed and was an empire ruled by cruel kings, oppressing people throughout the Mediterranean. And yet there were people who told this story of people carrying rededication. And then in the year 70, when the Romans destroyed Judea and forced the Jewish people into diaspora across the empire, people kept the story. And now here we are in the land of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people in a building that was once a Methodist church, and we as Unitarian Universalists are wrestling with what does it mean to be dedicated in a really difficult time, trying to figure out how to respond when we see a planet surrounded by war and dead children and a warm climate and cruelty. Is it time to stop dedicating ourselves to principles? And I would say no. I would say no. And the question, though, that I'm often asked is from other colleagues and from congregants in different communities is, how do we do this? And Reverend Micah Ma, much smarter than I am, is the minister at First Brooklyn. And Reverend Micah and I were having a conversation the other day, and it appears that there are kind of two schools of thought about how Unitarian Universalists should meet this unfolding, violent, confused moment. And one says, our congregations need to be places of restoration, that we need to gather for comfort, support, solidarity, to help us as individuals go out into an intentionally hard world, to advocate for peace, to work for justice as individuals. And the purpose of the house of worship is to restore us. And there's another school, the school of galvanizing, that says we gather to be challenged as a group, and that our purpose in joining a house of worship is to act as a group, to apply pressure, and to grow spiritually together. And for what it's worth, Reverend Micah and I think that's a false binary. We need houses of worship that do both, that restore our spirit and push us into the world and give us space to heal and give us space to ask questions about life and death and to challenge the powers and principalities that continue to oppress too many people. We need a bird with two wings to fly. So we need a faith that inspires us to check in on one another, to sing together, to show up at town councils and village boards of trustees asking about affordable housing and police brutality here in Westchester. We need a faith tradition that will inspire us to hear asking about a person's pronouns as the beginning, not the summit, of our work for belonging and inclusivity. And a tradition that helps us accompany one another in the very real grief, political, personal, social, of our time. Over the last year, I know congregations in our movement have been destroyed because of conflict. Because if we lean too hard, we forget who's in the room with us. But I also know congregations that have grown through conflict. It's how we act when we encounter these moments. How we create a story that can lead us into ways of transformation or isolation. I am humbled to be part of this community because I see the grace you give each other and I see the push that you give one another to go out into the world. I think about that poem. To know another's suffering is to know love. And to know love, you need to know suffering. As we gather in this time of darkness and dedication, where so much is unknown, I ask us to consider how we can respond to the moment. And I think in our small groups for spiritual care, in our service to the wider world and to one another, and in consistent moments of pause, we can cultivate and care for a faith movement with two wings, of restoration and galvanizing, that honors the darkest night, and that even in the most hellish times, is that we can recommit to principles that mean something and be part of an unfolding story. Thank you.
Each week, we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with Fred's Pantry. Fred's Pantry operates with a farm-to-pantry model, bringing fresh produce to clients twice a week throughout as much of the year as possible. They provide healthy, nutritious food to more than 350 households per week. Visit the website chhop.org. Please refer to our e-newsletter or website for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. From your homes, you may make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter, or by visiting our website, uuchudsonvalley.org. Or, if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Now please rise in body or spirit and join us in our final hymn, hymn number 1053 in the Teal hymnal, How Could Anyone?
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May the sacred darkness and the days of dedication inspire us to be present to one another. May in the days and weeks ahead we be braver than we thought we knew we could. May we be sensitive in moments where we were cold, and may we be surprised. May it be so. I also just want to extend an invitation. If you are interested, on Tuesday evening, we're offering a Christmas Eve celebration. All are invited. And otherwise, we'll see you in hospitality after service today. Thank you. And all the ways you celebrate, it is a gift to be with you.